Okay, let's just jump right in. We've all been there, and I mean really been there. You walk into a room, maybe it's a holiday gathering or that weird quiet at the office after a big announcement, and you feel it instantly. It's this density in the air. You sense the smiles, sure, but you also sense the immense pressure holding them up.
Yeah.
You see that little flicker of sadness in someone's eyes that everyone else just breezes past, or you pick up on the hidden power dynamic that's actually driving the whole conversation. And, if you have this kind of highly tuned radar, you're usually told it's a gift.
Oh, yeah, you're insightful, empathetic, it's always framed as this incredible asset.
But Alan Watts comes along and suggests that this very ability, this thing we celebrate, the capacity to see what everyone else has agreed to ignore, might actually be the most dangerous thing you could possess.
And when he says dangerous, it's so important to get this right. He's not talking about, physical harm.
Right, not like walking down a dark alley.
No, not at all. The danger is so much more subtle. It's a psychological threat. It's the risk of becoming so aware, so finely tuned to the truth of a situation that you can no longer participate in what he calls the beautiful unconsciousness.
I love that phrase, beautiful unconsciousness.
It is, isn't it? Because that's the shared agreement that allows most people to live with a sense of peace. By seeing too much, you effectively risk becoming a psychological exile.
Psychological exile, that hits hard because it's not like you've been kicked out. You've found yourself living in a completely different reality from everyone around you.
Yeah.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We need to stop just blindly calling this a gift and really look at the hazards that come with it. We're going to unpack the 4 specific dangers Watts points to: the isolation, this inner split, becoming the target, and the loss of self.
And this is the most important part. We have to find the transformation. We have to find the wisdom, the actual operational knowledge required to turn this clear sight from what feels like a curse of alienation and exhaustion into a consciously held sustainable gift.
It's like the difference between being an exposed nerve ending, just absorbing everything,
and being a conductor who can actually direct the energy.
That's a perfect way to put it. And I think we have to start with the social mechanics of it all, because the problem isn't always the person who sees. It's the system they're seeing through. Watts's description of social life as a stage play is it's so perfect. It nails the kind of artificial but, totally necessary nature of how we interact. It's all based on these unwritten rules.
It's a collective agreement, right? A silent contract we all sign up for. I mean, think about it. So much of our daily communication is it's procedural. When you ask a colleague, "How are you?" Watts says you're often not actually asking about their real state of being.
Not at all. You're saying the password. You're giving the prompt that's required to move the scene forward.
And the correct response, the one that keeps the play going, is "Fine, you." And both people just accept that answer as complete. To actually answer it honestly, to talk about your mortgage anxiety or your fight with your partner, that would be a total violation of the contract.
It would break the whole scene. And you see it everywhere. You compliment the dinner party even though the hosts are barely speaking. You laugh at the boss's joke for the 5th time. You do these little rituals to keep the social machine running smoothly.
It's social lubrication. It's what stops us all from being constantly overwhelmed by the sheer weight of reality.
But then you have this person with the penetrating awareness. They're sitting there watching the play, but they can't stop noticing the cracks in the scenery or the stagehands frantically trying to hold it all together in the wings.
They're seeing the truth that the entire system is designed to suppress. They notice that tiny flinch when a husband mentions his wife. They sense the desperate loneliness behind the person who talks the loudest. They feel the anxiety in the room, even when everyone's laughing.
And the key thing is, once you see it, you can't unsee it. You can't just choose to go back to being comfortably numb.
You can't. And that slams us right into danger number 1, isolation. Because your very presence, your clarity, you become a mirror. A powerful and, frankly, very unwelcome mirror.
A mirror that people can't stand to look into.
They really can't. When you perceive those hidden things, you're holding up a reflection that threatens their whole coping mechanism. And people react badly to that, not always out of malice, but just out of pure self-preservation. Your clarity threatens the agreed-upon fiction that allows them to get through the day.
So it's not even personal, it's structural. If you interrupt the performance, the actors panic and they attack whatever interrupted them.
Exactly. Watts says society is made of people wearing masks. The dutiful employee, the happy couple, the perfect parent. The person with clear awareness is responding to the actual person behind the mask, while everyone else is just interacting mask to mask.
It's like you're standing on stage during a play and you turn to the lead actor and ask, "Are you really okay? Or are you just saying the lines?"
Yes. It just shatters the illusion.
And the isolation that comes from that it's so profound. It's not just about not getting invited to things. It's this deep existential isolation of living in a different reality. You're speaking a language of truth in a world that only understands the script.
Which is how you start to feel like you're going crazy. The evidence of your own senses is constantly being denied by everyone around you, so you find yourself constantly translating your own experience just to fit in.
Let's talk about that anecdote of Sarah, because that just perfectly lays out the cost of this.
It's a tragic example. Watts describes her as someone who could just read people instantly. She knew if a compliment was real or manipulative, if laughter was joyful or just nervous.
And what happened?
The result was just devastatingly predictable. She lost every close relationship she tried to build. People would be fascinated at first, but the second they felt that she could see their insecurity, their performance, they just pull away.
And they'd say she was too intense.
Too intense. You read too much into everything. Can't you just relax and have some fun?
That's the one, reading too much into things. That's the weapon they use, isn't it? It frames the problem as being your perception, not the thing you're perceiving.
Exactly. And for Sarah, it was an impossible bind. She couldn't just relax because the noise of the underlying reality was too loud for her. For the clear seer, it's not a choice. It's how your brain works. So when people ask you to turn it off for their comfort, they're asking you to betray yourself.
And that self-betrayal, that's where the isolation becomes internal. You learn to just keep your mouth shut. And that silence, that's what leads us straight into the next danger.
Right. So once you see the truth, the isolation pushes you into danger number 2. This agonizing choice between speaking up or staying silent. And this is where the whole problem turns inward and really starts to fracture the self.
It's a psychological tightrope, isn't it? If you speak what you see, even gently, you risk getting attacked.
You do. And the attacks follow a script. You're labeled. You're negative.
Overly sensitive, dramatic.
The classic troublemaker. You get accused of creating tension, of reading malice into things that were perfectly innocent. The second you point out that the emperor has no clothes, you become the enemy of everyone who's invested in pretending he's beautifully dressed.
Okay, but let's talk about the other choice, the silence. What's the cost of just swallowing what you see and pretending you don't notice?
Yeah, that's the slow burn disaster. That's the cost of the inner split.
Yeah.
Every single time you override your own accurate perception, every time you nod along with a lie, as a lie, you're sending a message to yourself.
And that message is?
That your experience isn't valid, that your perception can't be trusted. You're teaching your own psyche that what other people agree on is more real than what you know to be true.
And Watts calls this a madness of a very quiet sort. That's such a chilling phrase.
It is, because you're literally creating a split reality. You're living in two worlds at the same time. There's the clear, often painful reality that only you can see. And then there's the external social fiction that you have to perform in just to survive.
The sheer exhaustion of that, of having to constantly edit your own thoughts and reactions all day long.
It's immense. It takes a huge amount of psychic energy to maintain that split. And over time, the part of you that sees clearly starts to feel silenced, invalidated. It retreats. And the performing part, the mask, it takes over. You become numb.
Let's use that business meeting example from the source. It illustrates this conflict perfectly.
Oh, it's the classic scenario. The whole team is in a meeting, celebrating a successful project. Everyone's patting each other on the back.
Right. Lots of high fives and talk about synergy.
But the clear-seeing person in the room, they see the forced enthusiasm. They notice how nobody is mentioning the lead engineer who quit halfway through, or the glaring hole in the budget. The whole vibe just screams denial.
So their internal monologue is just shouting, "This is a lie. We're celebrating a disaster," but everyone else is clapping.
Exactly. So what do? If they speak up, even if they say something gentle like, "Maybe we should discuss the risks now that we've lost our lead engineer," what happens?
They're met with instant hostility. And it's not a reasoned debate, is it? It's not, "That's a fair point. Let's look at that."
No, it's pure defensive hostility. And that distinction is everything. They're not angry at the facts. They're angry at the exposure of the stage play.
Which leads us right into danger number 3. Shooting the messenger. This is the ultimate defense mechanism. The person who sees the problem, they instantly become the problem.
It's an unconscious sleight of hand. Others start treating the perceiver as if their perception created the problem. The dysfunction was always there, simmering away. But the moment someone names it, all that pent-up anxiety has a target to shoot at.
Right. Instead of dealing with the bad news, you just get rid of the person who brought it.
It's a brilliant psychological defense, really. The clarity is a threat, so it has to be neutralized. And that's when the labels fly. You're being so negative. You're just creating drama. You're unstable. You're paranoid.
And notice, none of those labels are about the actual issue being raised. They are all attacks on the person who raised it.
It's the ultimate move. If we can convince you that your perception is flawed, we never have to look at what you're perceiving. You become the scapegoat for the anxiety you only revealed.
And that is so incredibly isolating. Because you know you're not crazy, you know what you saw is real, but the whole world is telling you you're broken.
And that constant battle, it erodes your faith in your own mind, your own center, which of course leads us to the final and maybe the most devastating danger of all.
So the first three dangers are really about the social fallout and the internal conflict it creates. But Watts says danger number 4, this loss of sender and identity confusion, is the most devastating.
It is, because it's not just about how you relate to others, it's about losing the very core of who you are. This is what happens when you're a perpetual emotional sponge.
A sponge, yeah. This happens when your boundaries become, what's the word? Permeable.
Dangerously permeable. When you are so tuned in to the unspoken emotions, the hidden frequencies of everyone around you, you start to lose track of where you end and they begin. You're just absorbing everything without a filter.
Can you describe what that actually feels like? Because I think a lot of people confuse this with just being empathetic. This is something else entirely.
It's so much more intense. It's the experience of walking into a room, a party, your family home, feeling completely fine, centered, calm. You leave 2 hours later and you feel just inexplicably anxious. Or deeply sad, or you're simmering with this rage you can't place.
And the worst part is the confusion. You have no idea if those feelings are even yours.
None. You have no anchor. You can't tell if that anxiety originated inside you or if you just soaked it up from the room like a sponge in dirty water.
I can't even imagine the psychological load of that, of never being sure which thoughts are actually yours. It's like trying to hear your own voice in a room full of shouting.
It is exhausting beyond measure. And when this goes on long enough, people literally describe the feeling of disappearing. They say things like, I feel like there's less and less of me and more of everyone else's stuff that I'm carrying.
They become hollowed out?
Completely. Their energy is just constantly being siphoned off to manage the unconscious baggage of their environment.
So this isn't just a metaphor. This is a real psychological threat to your actual identity.
Absolutely. If you can't reliably tell what's your emotion and what's someone else's, you have no stable self to operate from. You can't make choices that are good for you because you don't even know what you feel. You're just constantly reacting to external noise.
The very gift that was supposed to make you special ends up dissolving the self that possesses it.
It's the ultimate curse. But, and this is the big pivot, Watts says this whole cycle is only dangerous as long as it's unconscious. When the person just thinks they're going crazy or that something's wrong with them, that's the trap. The transformation starts the second you understand the game you're in and you change how you decide to play it.
Okay, so we've painted a pretty grim picture here. The isolation, the split, the exhaustion. You can't turn the awareness off, so how do you stop it from being a curse? How do you make it an asset?
Well, the transformation isn't about seeing less. It's about relating differently to what you see. It's that moment you stop thinking of your clarity as a flaw and start seeing it as, well, as a powerful tool that just requires some very mature handling.
So if the danger isn't the perception itself, what is the truly dangerous part? What's the thing that drives all this suffering?
It's the compulsion to act.
The compulsion.
The compulsion. The deep-seated, often unconscious belief that if you see a problem, you are now responsible for fixing it. If you sense pain, you have to heal it. If you see dysfunction, you feel this overwhelming urge to intervene.
It's like a kind of savior complex, but it's not driven by ego. It's driven by the perception itself. You feel like you have to do something.
Precisely. And in doing so, you take on this crushing responsibility for things that were never yours to carry in the first place. You burn out trying to fix things that either can't be fixed by you or just aren't ready to be fixed at all.
This is where we have to talk about Watts's core image here, the muddy river analogy. This feels like the key that unlocks the whole thing.
It really is. So imagine you're walking alongside a river and your clarity, your awareness immediately tells you the water is dirty, it's cloudy, full of silt, it's undeniably muddy.
Okay.
The person who's still operating under the curse, the one driven by compulsion, What do? They jump right into the river.
With the best of intentions.
Right.
Right, they want to make it clean.
Of course. So they're in there, flailing around, stirring up the bog, trying to scoop out the mud with their bare hands. They're trying to force the water to become clear right now.
And of course, they just make it worse. They stir up more mud.
They exhaust themselves in a totally impossible task and make the water even murkier. The wisdom, however, is to simply stand on the bank and observe. To see clearly and accurately, the water is muddy. You might make a mental note, okay, probably shouldn't drink from that today.
And then you walk on.
You walk on. You leave the river to its own processes.
The principle being, not everything you perceive requires your intervention.
That's the whole thing. The river will clear itself, but only when the conditions are right, only when there's stillness. Your frantic stirring just prolongs the chaos. And this is the wisdom that transforms clear seeing. It's the acceptance that you can see a problem, you can understand it deeply, and still choose to let it be.
That's not apathy, though. That's respect for the process.
It's a profound respect. You give up the need to be the manager of everyone else's consciousness.
And here's the paradox that Watts points out. He says, once you drop that compulsion to fix things, your perception often gets even sharper. Why would that happen?
Because all the energy you were spending on anxiety, on what do I do now and how do I fix this, is now freed up for pure, calm observation. You're not seeing through the filter of your own agenda anymore. You're just seeing what is.
And socially, things shift too. People actually start to feel safer around you.
Yes, because you're no longer unconsciously demanding that they change to make you feel better about what you see.
When you're trying to fix someone, they feel that pressure. They feel the judgment.
But when you can just be present with them, when you can see them completely, their struggles, their denial, all of it, and not need them to be any different, that is an incredible gift of acceptance. That's liberating for them.
So it's the gift of allowance. You see the struggle, but you don't try to rescue them from it. You stop making their unconsciousness your personal project.
And that's when the awareness stops being a weapon and becomes a light. It's a quiet light that you hold, and others can choose to walk toward it when they're ready, not when you are.
So the suffering isn't from seeing clearly. It's from the exhaustion of taking on every burden you see because you haven't built up any self-protection. Let's get really practical. How does someone living with this actually master it?
It's all about resilience. The people who thrive with this awareness, they are, as the saying goes, in the world but not of it. They have figured out how to see everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, without being consumed by it.
They maintain what Watts calls a conscious distance. But hold on, when I hear that, it sounds a lot like isolation. Are we just trading one kind of loneliness for another?
That's the critical distinction. Cold withdrawal is a reaction. It's driven by fear or resentment. It's about pushing the world away. Conscious distance is proactive. It's about maintaining healthy psychological boundaries so that you can process information without taking on the emotional state of the other person.
So it's not about avoiding people. It's about not being so permeable to them, like installing a better emotional firewall.
That's a great way to put it. The firewall allows you to recognize, okay, I can perceive the deep anxiety my boss is feeling, but I do not have to absorb that anxiety into my own body. I don't have to carry it for him.
The information comes in, but the emotional baggage stays where it belongs.
Exactly.
So how do you build that firewall? Watts says it starts with psychological solitude. That sounds like more than just putting your phone away for an hour.
It's a world away from just being physically alone. Psychological solitude is a dedicated, rigorous practice of not taking in anyone else's stuff. No news, no social media, minimal input. It's time that is purely for internal inventory.
The goal being to let your own muddy water settle.
Precisely. We're back to the river. If you're constantly letting external emotions rush into your system, your own internal water is always going to be cloudy. You'll never know what's at the bottom. Solitude is the stillness that lets all that sediment drop.
And only then can you finally see clearly what's yours and what isn't. Okay, that anxiety, that's mine. But that sadness, I've been carrying that from my partner all week.
And that clarity is how you heal the inner split. It's how you start to trust your own perceptions again, because you've learned to distinguish your signal from all the external noise.
Which brings us to the final and maybe most difficult piece of wisdom, learning patience. You see the problem, you know it's real, but the wisest thing to do is often nothing.
This is the mastery level. Doing nothing is not being passive. It's being wise enough to know that your intervention would probably just be about soothing your own discomfort, not about what's actually right for the other person's journey.
You have to trust your perception, but you can't let it hijack your own peace by making you feel like you have to control the outcome.
Because people change when they're ready to change, not when we need them to. Consciousness it unfolds at its own pace. Trying to force it is the single biggest source of pain for the clear seer.
And finally, let's circle back to that deep isolation we started with. The fear that you're just permanently alone in how you see the world.
This is where Watts offers so much comfort. He basically says, you are not crazy. You are not broken. You are just awake in a world that is, for the most part, still sleeping. And the proof is that others who see as you see exist.
Finding them isn't just about making friends, is it? It's about validation. It's finding a place where your reality is confirmed, not denied, where you don't have to pretend to be less perceptive just to fit in.
And when you find that shared awareness, when someone else looks at you and reflects your own clarity back to you, the danger just melts away. The whole experience transforms from a burden into something shared, powerful, and beautiful.
Because then your only job is to stay awake yourself and to manage your own light. You're not trying to light up the whole world anymore.
So if we bring it all together, the transformation is right there. The gift and the curse, they're the same thing. It's the ability to see clearly. The danger was never in the seeing. It was in the unconscious compulsion to fix everything you saw, which just leads to burnout and isolation.
And the freedom comes from learning to handle that gift with real wisdom. You develop patience. You build those conscious boundaries with things like psychological solitude. You get to know yourself well enough to tell what's yours and what isn't.
Right. And that's when the clear seeing stops being this weapon you turn on yourself and others. And it just becomes this steady, reliable light.
A light that you offer gently. Watts's hope is that you hold it patiently and you allow others to approach it on their own terms when they're ready. Your job isn't to drag them into the light.
Your job is not to wake them up.
Your job is simply to remain awake yourself, to see clearly, and to learn how to live peacefully with what you see, even when it's uncomfortable. The danger is real, but the possibility of living with that clarity, that's so much more compelling.
I mean, the art of living with your eyes wide open is really the art of being conscious without being consumed by it, of seeing deeply without drowning in what you see.
So the question we'll leave you with is this. Knowing now that the real danger is the compulsion and the real freedom is in the wisdom, are you ready to stop carrying your awareness like a burden and finally learn to carry it as the magnificent gift it truly is?